If I could go back to 60, I would live differently. Not because I have regrets, but because I now understand what truly matters in life. The little things that make all the difference. When we're younger, we don't always see them. We get caught up in responsibilities, worries, and routines, thinking we have all the time in the world. But as the years pass, we realize that happiness isn't about chasing the future. It's about how we live each moment. Imagine waking up in the morning feeling excited about the day ahead, not because of some big event, but simply because you know how to enjoy life no matter what age you are. That's the secret I wish I had embraced earlier. If I were 60 again, I'd do things differently. And if you're watching this now, you still have time to make these changes. The first thing I'd do, I'd stop worrying so much about what other people think. For too many years, I let other people's opinions shape my choices. I hesitated to try new things because I was afraid of looking silly. I held back my thoughts because I didn't want to offend anyone. I even dressed a certain way because I thought I had to fit the part. But here's the truth. Most people are too busy with their own lives to judge you. And even if they do, it doesn't matter. The freedom that comes with age is realizing that the only opinion that truly matters is your own. I remember a time when I wanted to take up painting. I had always admired people who could put colors on a canvas and create something beautiful. But when I mentioned it to a friend, they laughed and said, "At your age, why would you start now?" So I put the idea aside. Years later, I finally picked up a paintbrush, and you know what? It was one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. If I could go back, I would have started much sooner. Because joy isn't about being the best at something, it's about doing what makes you happy. And that brings me to the next thing I would do differently. I would prioritize my health, not just for longevity, but for quality of life. When we're younger, we assume we'll always have time to take care of our bodies. We push through aches and pains, ignore the signs, and promise ourselves that one day we'll eat better, move more, and rest properly. But then, one day, we wake up and realize that our bodies don't bounce back the way they used to. If I were 60 again, I'd treat my body like my most valuable possession, not with extreme diets or exhausting workouts, but with simple, consistent habits. I'd stretch every morning just a few minutes to keep my body flexible. I'd go for daily walks, not just for exercise, but to enjoy the fresh air and clear my mind. I'd eat food that nourishes me, not just food that's convenient. And most importantly, I'd listen to my body. Because pain and fatigue aren't just annoyances, they're messages. The sooner we listen, the better we feel. But health isn't just physical. Mental well-being is just as important. I used to let stress take over my life. I worried about things I couldn't control. I held on to grudges that only made me bitter. I spent too much time thinking about the past or fearing the future instead of enjoying the present. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that happiness is a choice. It's not about having a perfect life. It's about how we react to what life gives us. If I could go back, I'd spend less time dwelling on what went wrong and more time appreciating what went right, because gratitude changes everything. The days I focus on what I have instead of what I lack are the days I feel truly alive. And speaking of being alive, there's one more thing I would do differently. I would spend more time with people who lift me up and less time with those who drain me. Life is too short to surround yourself with negativity. We all have those people who complain about everything, who bring drama into every conversation, who make us feel exhausted just by being around them. If I were 60 again, I'd set better boundaries. I'd spend my energy on relationships that bring joy, laughter, and meaning. Because at the end of the day, life isn't about how many years we have. It's about how much life we put into those years. And if you're watching this now, you still have time to make your years richer, fuller, and happier. Let's talk about how. One of the biggest mistakes I made when I was younger was thinking that happiness was something I had to chase. I believed that if I worked hard enough, saved enough money, and planned everything perfectly, I would eventually reach a point where I could relax and finally enjoy life. But the truth is, happiness isn't something you find in the future. It's something you create in the present. If I could go back to 60, I would focus less on what I thought I should be doing and more on what actually made me feel fulfilled. I spent too many years worrying about responsibilities, stressing over things I couldn't change, and putting off the things that truly mattered. But life doesn't wait. And if we're not careful, we spend so much time preparing for a future that we forget to enjoy the moment we're living right now. That's why, if I were 60 again, I would say yes to more experiences. I would take that last-minute trip, even if it seemed impractical. I would go dancing, even if I wasn't the best dancer. I would try new foods, meet new people, and explore new places. Not because I had to, but because life is meant to be lived, not just managed. Too many people think that after a certain age, they have to slow down, settle into routines, and avoid anything risky. But the truth is, adventure doesn't have an age limit, and the people who stay the happiest as they grow older are the ones who never stop being curious. But even more important than saying yes to new experiences, I would also learn to say no. No to the things that drained me, no to obligations that didn't bring joy, and no to relationships that made me feel small. It took me years to understand that protecting my peace was just as important as being kind to others. There is a difference between being generous and being taken for granted. And if I could go back, I would set stronger boundaries much earlier. I would also stop waiting for the right time to do things. I can't tell you how many times I told myself, I'll do that later, only to realize that later never came. We convince ourselves that we have plenty of time to visit that friend, write that book, or start that hobby. But time is the one thing we can never get back. If I could go back, I wouldn't wait for the perfect moment. I would make every moment count. And speaking of moments, one of the most powerful changes I would make is being fully present in them. How often do we rush through our days without really appreciating them? When I was younger, I was always thinking ahead, planning my next move, worrying about what came next. I wish I had slowed down more. I wish I had paid more attention to the laughter of my loved ones, the feeling of the sun on my skin, the simple joy of a good conversation. Because at the end of the day, the happiest people aren't the ones who had perfect lives. They're the ones who truly lived, who showed up for their own lives instead of just letting the years pass by. And if you're watching this now, you still have time. Let's talk about how we can start making that change today. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that aging is not about losing youth, it's about gaining wisdom. Too many people think getting older means slowing down, stepping back, or becoming less relevant. But if I could go back to 60, I would embrace every year with confidence, knowing that life doesn't get smaller as we age. It gets richer, deeper, and more meaningful if we allow it to. One of the ways I would do this is by investing in my relationships. When I was younger, I assumed that friendships and connections would always be there. I focused on work, responsibilities, and everyday tasks, thinking I'd always have time to catch up with loved ones later. But time moves faster than we realize, and people drift apart if we don't nurture those connections. If I were 60 again, I would make it a priority to reach out to friends more often, to spend quality time with family, and to be truly present when I was with them. There's nothing more valuable than the people who love and support you. And as we get older, we realize that it's not about how many friends we have, it's about the quality of those friendships. I would spend my time with people who lift me up, who bring laughter into my life, and who remind me that joy is best when shared. And just as importantly, I would also let go of relationships that no longer serve me. Some people drain our energy, bring negativity, or hold us back. If I could go back, I would recognize sooner that it's okay to walk away from those who don't bring peace into my life. Another thing I would do differently, I would make learning a lifelong habit. It's easy to fall into the mindset that after a certain age, we don't need to learn anything new. But the happiest people I know are those who keep growing, no matter how old they are. Whether it's picking up a new skill, reading new books, or exploring different perspectives, keeping the mind active is one of the best ways to stay engaged with life. If I could go back, I wouldn't let fear of failure stop me from trying something new. I would take that cooking class, learn that language, or finally figure out how to play an instrument. Because learning keeps us young, curious, and excited about life. And speaking of excitement, I would make sure to always have something to look forward to. One mistake I made when I was younger was thinking that the biggest moments in life were behind me. But the truth is, there's always something new to experience, no matter our age. It doesn't have to be something grand. It can be as simple as planning a weekend getaway, starting a new project, or even setting small personal goals. Having something to anticipate gives us energy, keeps us motivated, and reminds us that life is still full of possibilities. More than anything, if I could go back to 60, I would focus on living with purpose. It's easy to think that once we retire, our best years are behind us. But having a sense of purpose is what keeps life meaningful, whether it's through helping others, mentoring younger generations, volunteering, or simply sharing wisdom. There's always value in what we can contribute to the world. And that's the secret to truly enjoying life at any age. It's not about how many years we have left, but how much life we put into those years. And the good news, it's never too late to start. One of the things I wish I had realized sooner is that health is the foundation of happiness. When we're younger, we take our bodies for granted. We assume we'll always have the energy to do what we want, that aches and pains are just minor inconveniences, and that we'll have plenty of time to take care of ourselves later. But the truth is, the way we treat our bodies today determines how we feel tomorrow. If I could go back to 60, I would take my health more seriously. Not in a way that feels like a chore, but as an act of self-respect. I wouldn't see exercise as something I had to do. I would see it as a way to stay independent, strong, and capable for as long as possible. I would find activities that I genuinely enjoy, walking in nature, dancing, swimming, or even simple stretching, because movement is what keeps us alive, both physically and mentally. The happiest older adults I know are the ones who keep moving, who refuse to let their bodies stiffen with age, and who understand that staying active isn't about looking young, it's about feeling alive. And just as important as movement is what we put into our bodies. I used to think of food only in terms of taste, convenience, and habit. But if I could go back, I would pay more attention to what my body truly needed. I would cut back on processed foods, excess sugar, and anything that left me feeling sluggish. I would focus on real whole foods, fresh vegetables, healthy proteins, good fats, because when we nourish our bodies, we nourish our minds as well. The older I get, the more I realize that brain health and diet are deeply connected. Eating well isn't just about staying in shape. It's about protecting our memory, keeping our minds sharp, and ensuring that we can continue to enjoy life to the fullest. But let me tell you something even more important than diet and exercise. Mental health is just as crucial as physical health. If I could go back, I would prioritize stress management, relaxation, and emotional well-being just as much as I prioritized eating well and staying active. I would remind myself that worrying about the future steals the joy from today. I would spend more time in nature, practice gratitude daily, and allow myself to rest without guilt. I would let go of perfectionism, stop overthinking, and accept that life is meant to be lived, not controlled. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't just to live longer, it's to live better. And when we take care of our bodies, our minds, and our hearts, we don't just extend our years, we make every single one of them count. And that, more than anything, is the key to a truly happy old age. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned is that happiness isn't something that just happens, it's something we create. When we're younger, we often think happiness will come naturally if we have the right circumstances, a good career, a nice home, financial security. But as we get older, we realize that real happiness isn't about what we have, it's about how we live. And if I could go back to 60, I would be more intentional about choosing joy every single day. One of the biggest ways to do that? Letting go of what doesn't serve us. So many of us carry unnecessary burdens, old regrets, past mistakes, grudges, worries about things that may never happen. But if I could go back, I would remind myself that the past is done. No amount of overthinking can change it. And the future, it's not guaranteed. So why waste today worrying about something that may never come to pass? I would focus more on the present, enjoying the simple moments, watching a sunset, having a conversation with a friend, laughing at a silly joke, because those are the things that make life beautiful. And speaking of beauty, I would also stop caring so much about what other people think. So much of our time is spent worrying about how we're perceived, whether we look good enough, whether we're saying the right things, whether we're living up to other people's expectations. But here's the truth. Most people are too busy with their own lives to be judging ours. If I could go back, I would remind myself that it's okay to be different. It's okay to live life on my own terms, to embrace my quirks, to do what makes me happy regardless of what others might think. And part of that happiness? Doing more of what brings joy. When we were younger, we had hobbies, interests, and passions. But over time, responsibilities take over, and we stop making time for the things that light us up inside. If I could go back to 60, I would make sure I never let go of those things. I would paint, read, travel, write, or dance, whatever brought me joy, because that's what keeps the spirit alive. But most importantly, I would wake up every morning with gratitude. It's so easy to focus on what's missing, on what we wish were different. But the happiest people I know aren't the ones who have perfect lives. They're the ones who appreciate what they have. If I could go back, I would make gratitude a daily practice. I would remind myself every single day that life is a gift, and that no matter what, there is always something to be thankful for. Because at the end of the day, happiness isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about finding joy in the moments we already have. And when we do that, we don't just live longer, we live better. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned is that the people we surround ourselves with shape our happiness more than anything else. If I could go back to 60, I would be much more mindful about who I spend my time with. When we're younger, we often keep relationships out of obligation. Friends we've known for years, even if they drain our energy, or family members who've nothing but negativity. But as I've grown older, I've realized that life is too short to spend with people who make us feel small, unworthy, or exhausted. If I could go back, I would set stronger boundaries. I would choose to be around those who uplift me, who bring laughter and warmth, and who remind me of the joy of being alive. At the same time, I would also make more of an effort to stay connected with the people who truly matter. As we get older, it's easy to lose touch. Life gets busy, routines take over, and before we know it, years have passed without seeing old friends. If I could go back, I would pick up the phone more often. I would send that message, make that visit, and never let the people I love feel forgotten. Because at the end of the day, it's not money, achievements, or possessions that make life meaningful. It's the relationships we nurture along the way. But here's something I wish I had known sooner. We don't need a huge social circle to be happy. In fact, as we age, the quality of our relationships matters far more than the quantity. A few genuine, deep connections are worth more than 100 surface-level acquaintances. If I could go back, I would focus on building true, meaningful friendships, ones where I could be myself without pretense, without fear of judgment. And while friendships are important, so is the relationship we have with ourselves. If I could go back, I would be much kinder to myself. I would stop criticizing every little thing, stop comparing myself to others, and stop thinking I have to be perfect to be worthy of love and joy. I would treat myself with the same kindness I show my closest friends. Because in the end, the most important relationship we'll ever have is the one we have with ourselves. I would also embrace solitude rather than fear it. Many people worry about loneliness as they age, but I've learned that being alone and being lonely are two very different things. If I could go back, I would see solitude as a gift, a chance to reflect, to grow, to truly know myself. I would enjoy my own company, take myself on little adventures, and find peace in stillness. Because ultimately, a happy old age isn't about how many people are around us. It's about how deeply we connect, both with others and with ourselves. And when we nurture those connections, we don't just add years to our lives, we add life to our years. One of the greatest realizations that comes with age is that our health is our greatest wealth. When we're younger, we often take our bodies for granted, staying up late, eating whatever we want, ignoring those little aches and pains. But if I could go back to 60, I would take my health much more seriously. Not because I fear aging, but because I want to enjoy every single year to the fullest. It's not about extreme diets or intense workouts. It's about simple, daily habits that make a big difference over time. I would start by being kinder to my body, listening to it more carefully. If I felt tired, I would rest instead of pushing through. If something didn't feel right, I wouldn't ignore it. I would move my body every day, not to lose weight or look a certain way, but to keep my joints happy, my heart strong, and my mind clear. I've learned that the foods we eat can either be medicine or poison. If I could go back, I would make better choices, not in a restrictive, miserable way, but in a way that nourishes me from the inside out. More fresh, whole foods, more water, more mindful eating, savoring each bite instead of rushing through meals. And most importantly, I would stop seeing food as just something to fill my stomach and start seeing it as fuel for my body and brain. But health isn't just about what we eat or how much we exercise, it's also about how we manage stress. If I could go back, I would remind myself that worrying doesn't solve anything. I would spend less time dwelling on problems and more time focusing on solutions. I would make space for things that calm my mind, whether that's a quiet morning walk, deep breathing, listening to music, or simply sitting in stillness. And one of the biggest things I would do, prioritize sleep. When we're younger, we think we can function on little rest, but sleep is when our bodies heal, our brains reset, and our energy is restored. If I could go back, I would create a bedtime routine that actually supports deep, restful sleep. I would turn off screens earlier, dim the lights, and allow my body to naturally unwind instead of forcing it to crash. Most of all, I would stop treating health as a burden and start seeing it as a privilege. Because when we take care of our bodies, they take care of us. And when we feel good physically, everything else in life feels better too. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned is that time is the most precious thing we have. When we're younger, we think we have all the time in the world. We put things off. We assume there will always be another chance, another day, another opportunity. But if I could go back to 60, I would cherish every moment as if it were a gift, because that's exactly what it is. I would stop wasting time on things that don't truly matter. I wouldn't spend hours worrying about things beyond my control. I wouldn't let small frustrations steal my peace. I wouldn't hold on to grudges because, in the end, anger only hurts the one who carries it. Instead, I would forgive more easily, love more freely, and focus on what truly brings me joy. If I could go back, I would spend more time doing what makes me feel alive. Whether it's reading, gardening, walking in nature, or learning something new, I would make space for the things that fill my soul. I wouldn't wait for the perfect time to enjoy life, because the perfect time is always now. And one of the biggest things I would do, I would tell the people I love just how much they mean to me. We often assume our loved ones know how we feel, but life has taught me that we should never leave kind words unspoken. I would say, "I love you" more often. I would hug a little longer. I would make sure that no one I care about ever wonders how much they mean to me. I would also remind myself that it's never too late. No matter our age, we can always start fresh, always try something new, always create beautiful moments. If I could go back, I would stop thinking that certain dreams were too late for me. Because the truth is, as long as we're alive, we have time to live fully. And so, if you're watching this, let this be your reminder. Your best years aren't behind you, they're still ahead. Every day is a chance to create joy, to love deeply, and to embrace the life you have with open arms. So don't wait. Don't let fear, doubt, or regret hold you back. Start living fully today, because every moment is a gift, and you deserve to make the most of it. There's one thing I wish I had understood earlier. Happiness is not a destination, it's how we walk the journey. When I was younger, I used to think that at some point in life, I would have everything I needed to be happy: a stable life, financial security, good health, and a loving family. But over time, I realized that happiness isn't about having perfect conditions. It's about how we choose to live each day. If I could go back to 60, I wouldn't wait for tomorrow to start enjoying life. I wouldn't postpone the things I love, waiting for the right moment. I would dance even if there was no music, laugh out loud even if there was no special reason. Because I've learned that if we keep waiting for someday, that day may never come. I would also spend more time on things that truly matter. Not negative news on TV, not meaningless arguments, not worries over things beyond my control. Instead, I would focus on joy, peace, and the precious moments with loved ones. Because in the end, those are the things that stay with us, not the little worries that once consumed our thoughts. And if I could turn back time, I would remind myself that it's never too late to start again. It's never too late to pursue a new passion, to make new friends, or to love myself more. Change isn't about age, it's about determination. If we are willing, we can begin at any time. But I can't turn back time. Like you, I only have today. But luckily, today is all we truly need. We cannot change the past, but we can choose how we live in the present. And if you're hearing me say this, let this be your reminder. Live in a way that leaves no regrets. Because happiness isn't somewhere far away, it's right here within your reach. And the best part,